Creating a shared future in a fractured world. That is this year's theme at the World Economic Forum in Davos, continually calling on the international community to cooperate on tackling major global challenges. However, where is globalization heading? There has been a lot of pushback against globalization. That is what Brexit was all about. That is what Trump's America First is all about. At last year's Davos, Chinese President Xi Jinping vowed to open doors and to reject trade wars and protectionism. That's a robust defense of globalization. Davos is a platform where different perspectives converge. It is an annual event where political leaders, economists, academics, technology pioneers gather to devise a shared future.
Mr. Aikman, welcome to CGTN.
Thank you, Tian Wei. It's great to be with you again.
Fractured world, that's the theme of this year. But the question is, after this meeting, will there be any consensus?
Well, I think this year's theme really reflects what's going on in the world, and we need to come together and find a way of working forward, despite the fact that we're in a multipolar world, different views, different values, and even divisions within society, within countries. But there is hope. We've seen with climate change, with the Sustainability Development Goals, the world can come together around shared interests. And so that's what we're going to be trying to push this week, next week in Davos.
You're going to push very hard because there are a lot of heads of states, actually unprecedented number, going to Davos this year. Tell us more about that.
That's right. We have over 60 heads of state and heads of government. And you have to remember, the annual meeting starting at the beginning of the year is the way for people to look forward. So Justin Trudeau will be there outlining the agenda for the G7. President Macri from Argentina will be there outlining the G20 agenda. I think we have maybe 5 of the 7 G7 countries present. We also have Brazil and India, representing the BRICS and representing the G20. So really, I think we see these different worldviews and all of these different important players.
And you have Donald Trump there too.
Donald Trump will be coming, yes. I think people are very excited to hear from him directly about his America First agenda and what that means for them.
Was that a surprise to the forum?
Well, I think the fact that he's coming to engage with the international community is a very positive sign. Davos is all about dialogue and exchange. We don't always have to have the same views, but we have to come together and exchange ideas and try and find a common way forward.
People wonder whether Davos is going to be big enough for all the security guards and all the security measures.
Well, right now we're trying to tell people if you don't have a hotel, better not come.
That's a great advice, I would say.
It's really full.
Yeah, but having said that, though, the question that we are seeing these days is that we are all stick to our own mentality. And we do not want to change. Many wonder whether this Davos is going to bring people together or make it even clearer that the world is ever fractured than before.
I think President Xi said it very well when he participated in Davos last year. He said increasingly we're seeing people who seek to prosper at the expense of others. And this is where we need to find a new way forward. We can't have this kind of breakdown in the social contract, even within countries. So Professor Schwab, our founder and executive chairman, has been talking recently, in addition to the kind of quantitative easing that we have seen, which is now spurring some economic growth, we need qualitative easing. We need some sort of new social contract which can help address the people who are being left behind and have a much better globalization, a much more equitable globalization. It's going to be one of the big topics next week.
That is within societies, but what about international community? I mean, there is a very different understanding about how the world should be run in the future. People, some of them, tend to look internally. Others still believe that the international community, when working together under certain kind of mechanism, will come up with better results for everybody. So there is a sea divide of ideologies here. The question, once again, I want to come back to you, David, is this Davos, this time, it's going to be particularly intense because the debate is really reaching a level.
I think that's right. And I think this coming to grips with a multipolar world is something that all leaders are struggling with. There used to be, you know, a sort of Washington consensus about the direction that global, you know, liberalization was going, and that
Right.
we've seen the limits of that model. We've seen that break down with very different world concepts about how global governance should happen, very different values undermining decisions around cyber sovereignty or economic exchange.
Right.
And we need to recognize that even though we may not have shared values, we have shared interests. If you take things like climate change, or if you take, you know, trying to make the current economic growth more sustainable, these are common interests. And we may have different systems, we may have different values,
Right.
But we need to find a way to work together to create more inclusive prosperity for all.
Last year, Chinese President Xi Jinping was there, and he made a, shall we say, an outstanding speech, and certainly claimed to the international community about China's stance. That was applauded by members of participants at last year's Davos. 1 year on, how do you, as the head of the World Economic Forum here in China, see that speech and the significance of it? Meanwhile, how much still needs to be done by all sides?
I think you're right. The speech by President Xi Jinping last year was truly historic. And what I was very heartened to see was that throughout the year, at the major global events where China was engaged, whether it was hosting the Belt and Road Forum or whether it was President Xi speaking at the G20 or APEC, that message of continued engagement and the support of the international rules-based order was a consistent message and a consistent theme right up until the President's end-of-year address to the nation. And so I think clearly China is a driving force in terms of making sure that globalization continues to work for everyone. Nonetheless, there are real challenges, not just here in China or between China and other trading nations, but there are real challenges in that system to make sure that it really addresses all members of society. And this is something where we're putting forward a call to action to try and make globalization work for everyone. Because we don't feel you can have social progress and society can't really improve and continue forward if we don't have that economic growth and development. You need that growth to underpin support everything from infrastructure development to investment in schools and education. Society really can't move forward unless you have that economic progress, but it can't be economic progress at any cost. We need to be much more open and inclusive.
I remember last year when I was there listening to President Xi's speech, a lot of people around me talk about this speech and what he said, and people believe China at that moment and on is coming to the center of the world stage. But people wonder this time, the Chinese president is not going, so what is going to be China's role during the World Economic Forum this year? When it comes to business, when it comes to policy forming, when it comes to ideological discussions, when it comes to world challenges, where is China going to be this year?
Well, we're really pleased that China is maintaining a very high-level engagement. So we're looking forward to welcoming Liu He, Politburo member, and also the head of the office on the leading affairs. I'm not sure in English what it's called. Central Committee. Council of Leading on Economic and Financial Affairs. So Liu He will be joining us, and I think people are really interested in hearing from him on an insider's view, not only on the Chinese economy and what's happening domestically and maybe all of the transformations and reforms that people don't see yet, but also what will China's foreign economic policy be? How is China really going to engage on an economic basis worldwide? But he's joined not only by other key ministers and vice ministers from commerce and trade and the state-owned enterprises. We have, I think, 10 state-owned enterprises joining, as well as 30 private companies.
Congratulations.
So, we have really all of the big and innovative companies, representing China this year. So we think that China's engagement is sustained and continued. In fact, it's even higher participation from China than last year.
Congratulations. Good work, I guess, from the China office. Having said that, though, Davos, the World Economic Forum there, is facing two challenges, or shall I say two opportunities at the same time. On the one hand, you've got the geopolitical change, as well as we talked about, the so-called national interest, different views about it. On the other hand, you also got the fourth industrial revolution, which Professor Schwab has been talked about intensively in his two books. So when these two combine together, what kind of task and opportunity is it presenting to the World Economic Forum?
Well, certainly I think this multipolar world should be actually welcomed. We should recognize that in diversity, we may have more creative solutions and more helpful perspectives that can help us figure our way out of this new model. I think where leaders are really confounded, I guess I would say the word is with the technological changes taking place that you referenced. Technology is moving at such a pace that it's quite difficult to figure out how to regulate or how to control or how to encourage certain technologies which could benefit society. So, for example, we see the power of new industries like artificial intelligence or robotics to transform economies and create new sectors of the economy, for example, in China. That's why China has identified these industries as strategic areas where they want to invest. At the same time, there are potential social consequences of eliminating jobs or changing the way in which we need to educate our young people for the jobs of the future.
The issue of privacy, for example, also.
Absolutely.
The issue of governance as well.
So one of the things we'll be doing at this year's annual meeting is a specific series on agile governance. There's a whole pillar around getting regulators, academics, and technologists together to see how would we try to regulate and create light touch policies and protocols to handle technologies like 3D printing and advanced manufacturing or artificial intelligence in a way that could foster the innovation needed to create that economic boost, but also try and mitigate some of the potential downside societal risks from those technologies.
Every year in Davos, you will see different opinions, particularly those that are not participants. So how Davos World Economic Forum see itself today? What kind of platform? What is the nature of you today?
Well, as an international organization for public-private partnership, our core belief, our core mission is that the challenges in society cannot be solved by one stakeholder of society alone. Government alone can't do it, private sector alone can't do it. We need the different parts of society coming together to work on these global challenges.
But people will say, well, these few thousand rich and powerful be really, genuine and figure out the solution for those who are not.
So what we try to gather in Davos is really a representation of all society. So it's not just the rich and powerful. We have labor union leaders. We have young people from the age of 25 up to 35. We have academics. We have NGO leaders. We have social entrepreneurs who are working with people at really the bottom of the economic pyramid. And of the 3,000 participants, we really have a mix of all parts of society. And the reason why we try to engage certain people and perhaps not others is we really focus on decision makers. We really focus on people who have the ability to affect change and to make a difference. And I would say what we've done, I think very consciously over the years as well, is really opened up the World Economic Forum in terms of live casting, broadcasting, creating the open forum where we have citizens who come and sit on panels and discuss and debate with participants. So, in all those ways we try to to make the annual meeting as open, inclusive, and also representative as possible, while still recognizing the fact that you have to have security, you have to have access, because you have very important leaders attending there. So it's a delicate balance, but it's one which I think the World Economic Forum faces in a very open and transparent way.
This year is going to be a very important year for China. After the 19th Party Congress, this is the very first year to implement all those goals. And this is also the year to set up the real blueprint about implementation as well. So, David, how much inspiration do you think those that are coming from China, whether they are coming from business or societal groups or coming from the government, be able to draw from this year's World Economic Forum? How much can they also contribute to the real discussion?
Well, I think it's interesting. Many of the themes that came out of the 19th Party Congress around really trying to address poverty, address environmental issues and climate change, thinking about how to make the economy more innovative. These are topics which are going to be discussed next week in Davos.
Yes.
And I think what's very clear is China's own domestic goals are very congruent with the international planetary goals that we have. All of the efforts that China is doing to eradicate poverty, these are challenges that are not unique to China. These are being faced in all countries, not just high income, middle income, low income countries. This inequality in society, this increasing tension between the haves and the have-nots is not unique to China. But I think China's ambitions and China's plans can be helped by engagement internationally, can be helped by further opening up and exchange. And I think what many leaders will be looking to hear from their Chinese counterparts will be, how is China progressing along the path? How will new sectors like the financial services open up for competition and reform? Because I think increasingly, as goes China, so goes the world.
David, what a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you, Tian Wei.
All the best for this year's World Economic Forum in Davos.
And good luck to you too.
Thank you, sir. And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us, World Insight CGTN, into your search engine, or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on the World Insight team, thanks for watching. Tune in again next time for insights across China and around the world. Good night.